Lorenzo, you're unmuted, so could you perhaps say something? We just wanted to check whether your audio is fine, so your presentation isn't interrupted later. Lorenzo, we can't hear you, just to confirm. So you may need to just change your equipment once.
Oh, I can try it again. I don't know. I'm trying without the mic now. Wait one. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Lorenzo, I know you can hear us, so just to confirm, we can't get audio from your side. So switch device, and we will do a test later in. We'll go ahead and start now, just in the interest of time. Thank you, everyone. With that, let me just introduce this session and the participants. This is an open forum on the Keep It On movement and about internet shutdowns more broadly. Some of you might be familiar with Keep It On. Many of you might be members also of the Keep It On coalition. Others might be interested, and I'll try to provide a bit of background on that. Firstly, just to introduce myself, and then I'm going to introduce the rest of the panel and people who are also joining remotely. My name is Ramanjeet Singh Cheema. I'm policy director at Access Now. And Access Now is one of the organizations that helped pull together the Keep It On coalition. We are an international non-profit organization that looks at protecting the rights of users at risk. And in doing so, we particularly focus on your digital rights online and ensuring an open internet for all. As part of that, one thing that we've noticed along with many other organizations now, in fact, nearly 2 years ago, was the growing increase in the number of network disruptions, which is the technical term we use, but more often what you might encounter is entire internet shutdowns. For example, entire provinces, cities, sometimes even countries switching off internet access, sometimes at the physical layer, sometimes causing disruption at the mobile internet layer, and sometimes even in fixed line connectivity. At RightsCon, which is the annual summit series we ran, 2 years ago at Silicon Valley, in fact, we had a definition of shutdowns that came out due to community involvement. In fact, I see many people in this room who helped contribute to that definition of shutdowns. Shutdowns is now also something that's been discussed at the international human rights law layer. Some of you may be familiar with UN Special Rapporteur for Free Expression, Mr. David Kaye. David Kaye's most recent report talking about the role of free speech and the ICT sector has also spoken about the impact that internet shutdowns have and the role that the private sector, both in terms of telecommunications companies who governments often ask to block services, or web platforms and others whose services are disrupted, the impact and the role they have to play in this. But that's a little bit about what shutdowns are. The Keep It On coalition is a global movement to try and push back against this. It is explicitly an effort to share information about shutdowns, be able to notify the technical and sometimes news layer when they are taking place, bring visibility to them, but also with an avowedly advocacy objective to prevent the growth of shutdowns. And there may be interesting different viewpoints on this, and we'll welcome that. It is an open forum. We will have 2 structured rounds, especially for people's intervention. But if you will forcefully on something, with respect to the speakers, please intervene, and we will particularly try and give preference to remote participants. But with that, let me introduce the rest of the group as well. Ritu Srivastav is with the Digital Empowerment Foundation based out of India. And they are a Keep It On member and have also worked extensively on tracking shutdowns in India as well as engaging in the UN human rights process on this as well. We have Lorenzo who will be joining us remotely if the link permits that. Lorenzo is a developer, a mobile developer, in fact, with what a group many of you may know as OONI, OONI, the Open Observatory for Network Interference, which tries to do network tracking and network probe research on not just internet shutdowns, but broader types of network disruption or interference with network services. Kay is a researcher with the SINAR project, and they have worked on technical information on shutdowns as well as advocacy interventions on this, and Kay and Lorenzo will be presenting some research on the subject. Here again, back in person, we have Vaishali with the Software Freedom Law Center India. SFLC.in works, many of you may know, has come out of the open source community, but it worked extensively on digital rights issues as well as leading work on internet shutdowns, including their internet shutdowns tracker for India and global conversations on this, which you can visit at internetshutdowns.in, if I'm correct. Joining us remotely will be Apar Gupta from the Internet Freedom Foundation in India, which has been tracking and also engaging on advocacy against internet shutdowns in that country, including political and legal conversations on that. And Apar also has experience on litigation efforts against shutdowns. Lastly, but definitely not the least, is Anki Das, policy director with Facebook. Facebook is, as you know, also a Global Network Initiative member, and GNI as well as Facebook and other companies have taken positions on internet shutdowns, expressed concern on that. Many of you would have perhaps also seen GNI statements on this, as well as the new primer about when an internet shutdown takes place, what to do. And Anki will be talking a bit about what the private sector does there, but also take questions to the best of her ability on that. With that, we're going to do we try to keep 5-minute introductions from the speakers about their top concerns about shutdowns, stuff they've seen. And I would mention that most people here have worked on the subject. So you might notice this will be less definitional. It's going to be more about what are people actually facing, as well as interesting challenges happening in each country. For example, we recognize in Asia Pacific there's massive diversity and massive changes, variance in terms of what governments do, what regulators say, or even how shutdowns take place. Shutdowns in some places might be very easy to do versus elsewhere it might be state by state. So that's a little bit to give you experience. We will then have one round of structured. Anyone can intervene from the audience, and we will give time just for that. And then we will keep a little bit of time towards the end to focus again on the solutions piece in terms of what can people do if they want to take a strong position on shutdowns, what efforts are there. And for those who are also interested in the Keep It On movement as such, please ask questions, but you can also catch me or any of the other members after this session as well. And you can also visit the Keep It On website online, and you will see the hashtag also on Twitter, which gives you lots of resources. With that, we'll start with the first one. So Rita, can I call you?
Thanks, Raman. In the India, which we have seen, is about a 93 shutdown, and if I'm not wrong, that my colleague Vaishali will be able to correct me if that's the correct status right now. And we 2 years back, we started doing the research on that. What is the impact of the shutdown on the economically, not only economically, but also the socially, and how it is affecting the lives of the people, lives of the people. Especially in India, when we think about it, in a paradigm shift of Digital India plan, when there are out of 15 services, 9 services are only talking about digital payment services. So we started thinking that when network is being disrupted or shutdown is being happening, what are the disruptions that India is facing as well. I'm going to read some of the comments and some of the quotations what we have analyzed in our research when we are trying to understand the impact of the shutdown, in the social impact of the shutdown, and how it is emotionally and sentimentally affecting the people, everyone's in the Indian's life as well. So we did a media reporting, monitoring, and analyzed each and every media monitors, and what we have seen actually that there are a group of students who have said that if there's a shutdown, their semesters are going ahead, like their semesters are cancelled. So the semesters are cancelled because of that they are unable to access the information. They are unable to access the point that they want to access when they need to apply for the exams. In another, in a in that's a very interesting case when we saw that in a Darjeeling there's a shutdown has been for a 41 days. The student has said that we have gone for a vacation, but due to the shutdown, our plans are on a toss, that we cannot plan it out whether we can continue our travel or we cannot. So we are stuck in some place actually. In Uttar Pradesh, in Uttar Pradesh again that one shopkeeper has said, and the one shopkeeper has said that we come to the bridge to access the mobile internet services because there's a blanket of a shutdown is there. So we come to the bridge just to raise the tower, just to understand whether we can get the signal or not. So if we think that there's a level of shutdown is not only the blanket shutdown, but it's also the throttling of that bandwidth services at the same time. If I go to another state, when there's an incident of a shutdown is there, that due to the curfew of all offices, educational institutions are closed in Nagaland, and people are facing a shortage of a consumer items. People need the medicine, but they are unable to get the medicine as well. So these are some of the impact of the shutdown. We can see that it's impacting the shopkeepers, it's impacting the educational institute, it's impacting small vendors. So it's affecting all the ways of it. The point is all about that what we are doing at when the shutdown is also happening is some of the cases when we have seen that in the cases the national security is being given a reason that shutdown is required for that, and the spread of a just to stop the spread of a fake news that is also to put the shutdown, our network has to be disrupted. But what is the definition of that network national security is not being defined by the state, is not being transparent by the state. That is one of the reasons when we have asked them this, most of the people are saying that they do want to know what is the reason behind the what is the reason behind the state that that network is being transparent, but they are not clear about it because they do not understand what is the national security mean to them. In a case of a Jammu Kashmir, what we have seen that Jammu Kashmir, they are saying that we are getting this is the time then government is state is going to give us more time to kill people instead of being on a to do a productive work as well. So we can understand that if there is a if it is a longer duration, if it's a pro-longitude or longitude duration for the shutdown, that it's also giving provoking the citizens to come out and say that these are some of the things which we really want to understand it. These shutdowns are not only impacting the humans' life, but also impacting socially, impacting their lives in a day-to-day lives. So their day-to-day lives. So these are some of the measurements which we are trying to understand socially, economically through our research, and we would like that how we can give a rapid response to the government and what we can do it when the shutdown is happening at the same time. What we can do, and we have also in our Universal Periodic Review, we have clearly said that these shutdowns are not going to make us Digital India plan successful until unless we are providing this universal and uniform network to the government.
Thank you so much, Ritu. We were going to go to our remote participant next, but I think that we're still sorting out audio, so just to check. Is that working? So what we're going to do is we'll come back to the remote participants because I think there's a problem here at this end audio, but we'll still rectify that. So what I will then do is jump ahead a bit in the order. Kay, you like to come in after Lorenzo, right? Or would you like? Yeah, so Kay will come in later. So then Vishali, if you wouldn't mind, would you like to just talk a bit?
on? Yeah. So hello everybody. So I work at sflc.in, and at sflc.in we have been maintaining a dynamic internet shutdowns tracker at internetshutdowns.in. So at this shutdown tracker, for the month of 2017 itself, we have counted number of shutdowns as 34. It is the figures are only till the month of July as of the date as we are sitting now. So you can imagine the number of shutdowns in 2017, 34, while there were only 31. I wouldn't say only, but yes, there were 31 in the whole year of 2016, while there were 14 in 2015. So you can see the rapid increase of the number of shutdowns that have been happening. So from 2012, since that is the year since from when we have been collecting the data, we have seen 93 number of shutdowns in India across 16 states. So this highlights the importance and the gravity of the situation. Now, if we can go into it further, we've also been analyzing these shutdowns on the basis of the kinds of services that have been restricted, mostly mobile, fixed line, or the both of them, or also on the basis of duration of shutdowns, whether the shutdowns have been for less than 24 hours, or they have been for 24 hours to 72 hours, or more than 72 hours. And also on the nature of shutdowns, whether these shutdowns have been in response to something, the violence, or as a reactionary measure, or just for a preventive precautionary measure. So what we have observed that recently in 2017, mostly the internet shutdowns that have been imposed by the governments are preventive in nature, that is in anticipation of something going wrong. Also, durations of shutdowns have also increased, while the kinds of services, by the way, in India, we have mostly the internet users are now accessing internet via mobile. So 94%, if I'm not wrong, is the mobile internet user base. Also, there are broadband users as well, and governments have been resorting to shutting down internet mostly on mobile, and at times restricting both the internet, mobile internet as well as broadband, the fixed line networks. Now, when we look at it, going by the digital economy campaign that we are advocating, the government is advocating, at the same time shutting down internet, it has huge impact on people. Now, since in Darjeeling, as rightly being mentioned by Ritu, we have been facing internet shutdown for 41 days. There are students over there, the bodies of Teachers Association, that they have been protesting against it. They have not been able to fill up examinations form for for giving their board exams. Similarly, recently we had shutdown for over 15 days in Rajasthan, when it was reported that Sikara district in Rajasthan, that place incurred 25 lakhs. The people over there, the employees and the businesses, they incurred 25 lakhs, the loss of 25 lakhs rupees in those 15 days, apart from the 4 crore rupees that were lost by the users because they could not access internet services, and the internet service provider would not give them back their money for not using internet. Now, while we have been recording these shutdowns in our internet trackers, so how we do it, we generally source them from the crowd. We rely on the newspaper reports, and also our website has a report a shutdown button through which people in the affected areas may by themselves report a shutdown in their place. So recently we have been receiving a lot of reports from these affected areas, CICS, that yes, we have seen a shutdown in this particular place, and this is causing us this much trouble. We have been denied of the essential medical facilities or essential internet banking facilities, which are really important for the online day-to-day transactions, considering the economy is increasingly going cashless. So I think these issues are should be in fact readily addressed by the governments also, because these issues, the internet shutdown is imposed on the state level under Section 44 mostly, or under Telegraph Act Section 5. So under Section 144, which is a very archaic law.
Could you just mention which law
Yeah, Section 144 of CRPC Criminal Procedure Code, which is basically a law to prevent the curfew in case of a disturbance in an area, to prevent the unlawful assembly of people. So the state government, this is imposed by the state government. So state government is also using this law, which is a very archaic law. It's 1800 something law. So government are using this law to apply it to the internet sphere, which is, I don't think that is justified. So when you also restrict the freedom on internet, when you restrict the internet, you also restrict the freedom on your speech, freedom to access basic necessities of life. For example, the essential utilities, internet services, banking, internet banking facility, healthcare. As Ritu also mentioned, and we also found out in a study that in Nagaland, when internet was shut down there, the hospitals over there could not perform essential surgeries because they could not access the medical records of the patients because the internet wasn't there. So it also affects these essential operations which cannot take place without the use of internet. So when we the use application of these archaic laws to internet sphere is one problem, and also to mitigate this problem, not exactly to mitigate this problem, but yes, to bring into light the gravity of the problem and to address and to find the solution towards it, we have also been writing letters to the CM, also been campaigning against them, against these laws. So I think there is something that we can do together, and I would like the panels to also to focus more on it.
Thank you, Vishali. Anki, in fact, Lorenzo's connection is working, so should be able to jump in. I think it might be a good time because, as Vishali mentioned, a lot of the trackers that people are doing are sometimes based on news reportage as well as user notification. That said, at the technical level, and I can share that from many of the technical members of the Keep It On movement, the efforts also been to try and use network probes and other data to get actual data, network operations data and what's taking place. As I mentioned previously, Lorenzo works with UNI, the Open Observatory of Network Interference. Lorenzo, we're going to try and see if you can come in now. So if you can hear me, try and speak.
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can hear you. Fantastic. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if you can see my slides, but I have them over me. So I work with Uni and I'm the main mobile developer. I joined Uni 2 years ago. And so basically Uni is a free software and a global observation network for detecting censorship, surveillance, and traffic manipulation on the internet. I see share my screen, so let's try it.
Lorenzo, if you share your screen right now, it will come up at our end as well.
Are you going to share my slide or should I try it? Okay, upload in progress. Okay, I can see the slides. These are about the findings. Don't share the Uni ones?
I think these are the Sinar project size, Lorenzo.
No.
So not yours. Just 1 second. Lorenzo, I think it's not going to come up, so you may. So Lorenzo, I think what we're going to try and do is get that maybe put across on a shared resource link. So if you ping it across on the meeting room chat, that might be best, and then people can access it there. Otherwise, you may just want to keep it to oral comments right now. And also we can see an upload in progress.
I'm uploading mine.
Thank you so much. And for those who are waiting, it is worth it because Uni does fantastic work. So I will be a salesperson and say it is truly worth waiting for this as it comes up.
Yeah, starting from the logo, I would say the graphics are fantastic. Thanks to Artur and Maria.
Lorenzo, while your presentation is uploading, what we'll do is maybe then jump to case.
Okay, yes, better.
And then maybe come back to you in a minute. So for those who are, and Kay, I'll let you give the introduction, but I know your work builds on the Uni framework and uses the data. So would you like to perhaps just talk about the specific research that you all did? We'll switch that.
Alright, so I'll start off with introducing CNET project and explain a little bit about what we do. We're an initiative using open technology and data to systematically make important information more open and accessible to the Malaysian public. So the internet plays a crucial role in our work in improving governance and ensuring that the Malaysian government remains open and transparent. So it's important to us that freedom of expression continues to remain ensured in the online digital space. So to that end, we've collaborated with the Open Observatory of Network Interference, UNI, to test and collect evidence of internet censorship in Southeast Asian countries, specifically countries where the government has stark controls over the internet. So I'll share some of our findings, starting off with Malaysia. Malaysia has, as of 2016, 1 million internet users with a 68% internet penetration rate. We have 5 main ISPs, each providing mobile and/or fiber internet to homes. Our findings revealed that 39 websites were blocked via DNS injection on blog pages. These sites included news outlets, blogs, and the entirety of Medium.com for reporting on the 1MDB scandal which followed our Malaysian Prime Minister's mysterious private dealings which led to a paper trail of 2.6 billion ringgit being funneled into his private accounts. So the Malaysian government has not been discreet about their blockings, justifying it as a violation of security under the Communications and Multimedia Act. which authorizes them to ban indecent, threatening, or offensive content. Moving on to Thailand. Thailand has, as of 2016, a 59.8% internet penetration rate. There are 7 major ISPs in Thailand, with 6 providing mobile internet. And what's interesting about Thailand is that the Thai government has long held extensive control over the internet due to their relationships with internet service providers and telecommunication companies. So this usually means that Thai ISPs are complicit in cooperating with the government in response to government-sanctioned censorship requests. Some of the laws facilitating censorship in Thailand include notably the Lese Majeste law, which penalizes anyone found to have made offensive or defamatory comments against the Thai monarchy, and the Computer-Related Crime Act, which penalizes anyone found to have uploaded content found to be false, false, or defamatory. These laws have long been used against Thai journalists, activists, and internet users in silencing online dissent in the Thai internet community. So we found that 13 websites were hacked via DNS hijacking and HTTP transparent proxies in Thailand. These sites include WikiLeaks, sites which contain information on censorship circumvention tools, and news outlets such as the New York Post and Daily Mail. Interestingly, New York Post was only censored in one mobile internet service, which was DTAC, and was largely accessible through all other ISPs. The same goes for WikiLeaks, which was only censored by one of the ISPs, and this corroborates with reports that of the Thai secret police's agreements with Thai ISPs to grant ISPs the authority to censor internet content at their own discretion, which gives them a lot of power in their control over freedom of expression in the Thai digital space. Next, we have Myanmar. Myanmar has, as of 2016, a 19% internet penetration rate. The people in Myanmar have a very limited choice of ISPs, only between Myanmar Post and Telecom and Bagan Cybertech, and both are unfortunately state-controlled. Myanmar has the 2013 Telecommunications Law, which allows the government to both censor information and set up surveillance. They also have the very restrictive Computer Science Development Act, which requires a permit for the import of computing equipment, and they have various defamation laws which have been used against the Myanmar people in controlling their speech online. So, tests run in 2012 by Uniprobe detected the use of commercial filtering devices used to filter internet content, though our most recent tests run in 6 networks showed no signs of this software being used. We still found evidence of censorship in Myanmar, most notably with the sites of the US Embassy in Myanmar and the Organization of American States, which presented strong signs of TCP/IP and HTTP blocking. Finally, we have Indonesia. Indonesia has an over 50% internet penetration rate with 132.7 million internet users. Due to their unique geography as an archipelago with over 17,000 islands, they have over 300 ISPs, though only 35 own network infrastructure. The 3 largest providers in Indonesia are Telkom, Indosat, and XL Axiata, with both Telkom and Indosat being partially state-owned. So Indonesia has the Electronic Information and Transactions Law, which has been used to prosecute individuals who distribute or transmit indecent content, gambling material, defamatory material, and material containing extortions or threats. So we found that 161 websites were blocked throughout the testing period, with Indonesian ISPs appearing to primarily implement these blocks via DNS hijacking. So similar to Thailand, Indonesian ISPs are authorized to ban online content at their own discretion. So some ISPs were found to have blocked Vimeo and Reddit despite the government having supposedly lifted the ban on them 2 years ago. So most of the censorship in Indonesia appear to have been implemented in regards to the reinforcement of cultural norms. For example, in blocking LGBT or pornographic content, the latter of which makes up the majority of blocked Indonesian sites. With the increasing rate of official internet penetration and adoption in Southeast Asian countries, it's all the more imperative to ensure that democracy continues to be protected in these spaces. So by collaborating with the Tor Uni project to collect censorship statistics, we're able to map out gaps in access in regards to affordability, reach, and access to rights. So Lorenzo will go into more of these, more of what UNI does from a technical perspective, but it's important to run these censorship tests, not just to formally verify the digital rights violations that are going on, but also because we'll be able to understand these blocks from a more technical perspective in terms of their extent and how they're backed. For example, if it's a HTTP, so this will give us the power to be able to understand and also possibly work around these censorships. For example, if you have a HTTP block, then the solution to that would be to just use HTTPS. So if you'd like to learn more about how to run UNI probes in your country and help fight internet censorship, you're free to talk to us or UNI. My supervisor is here. She knows much more about this than I do. Yeah. So thank you.
And we're going to just try with Lorenzo again in a minute. I draw one comment on censorship and shutdowns. In fact, often shutdowns are sometimes been justified on the basis that, look, we cannot block certain bits of content. We can't block certain websites, therefore we have to shut the entire internet down. It's a very common refrain of lots of governmental agencies across the Asia-Pacific region. Sometimes also the increased use of HTTPS is also provoking reactions where they say we can't block specific URLs or specific instances of content, and therefore we're going to try and do more. So just to reiterate what Kay mentioned, that more technical research is really helpful, because then you start understanding the sort of interests that are at play with state stakeholders and others on this. With that, I just want to try again with Lorenzo, if you could provide, go into his notes. I think his presentation will also work now. So Lorenzo, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, I can see my slides loading.
Lorenzo, perhaps as they load, maybe you could give a little bit of background about UNI.
Okay, yeah. So I said what is UNI, and I can say what we do. We test the network with many different techniques, and I will describe them later. And basically, apart from just the app or the size or the Raspberry Pi, we give instrument and data to every person or every activist to write reports or anything they can do with the data. So we collected millions of network measurements from all across the world, and especially with the launch of the mobile app, the number really spiked up. So the tests are targeted of blocking a website or instant messaging app, or even blocking of censorship circumvention tools like Tor, and detection of middle boxes, or just measurement of network speed and performance, because this can be a form of censorship, throttling. So UniProbe is available on Linux and macOS with our web application, and Android and iOS with our native application and our Raspberry Pi. So the first time you run UniProbe, there is an informed consent that informs you with all the risks connected to running this software, because you can be testing websites that are risky or even illegal in your country, and as we don't know the laws about every country, we just inform the user, and we have a really small quiz to understand that the user understood what is about to run. There's a link here with a risk page you can visit. Once you install an app, you can make some choices. One is how you upload data to our collector, your privacy setting, if you want to share your IP or not, or if you want to share your country code, then the type of test to run, and lastly, how to contribute to the test list. I will talk about it later. So the test lists we use are hosted on GitHub in the repo of Citizen Lab. There's a link over there. And we have two different types of lists, the global list and the country-specific list. And if you want to contribute, there is a link and you can contribute to your country or to the global list. And it's really important because we need to keep this list updated and really relevant to every country. So the type of test we're actually doing are 4 or 5 in the mobile app and all of them in the web app and Raspberry Pi. One test is web connectivity. Web connectivity basically check a website if it's blocked or not with various techniques like DNS lookup, HTTP request, or TCP connection, and try to compare the control with experiment. So if one block is detected, we'll tell you which block and how to circumvent it. There could be, of course, a false positive due to DNS resolver or the website serves different content depending on your country, but we're still trying to study how to exclude false positive from our results. Then there is the HTTP invalid request line. You try to send an invalid request line to a control server and get the same string back. If you get an error, probably there is no control server, but it's a middle box. And you know that there's something between you and your connection. Then another similar test is the HTTP header field manipulation. I'm just skipping over tests, otherwise I have too many slides. So what we collect? We collect the country code, the anonymous system number, date of time, network measurement data, the IP address if you agree to share it. But it can be collected without your consent or based on some network condition. And to upload data, there are like these 3 ways: the torrent services, the HTTPS collector, and the cloud fronting. This is how it looks on the web application after you install it. You have the test, you can run it, then you have the list of your measurements, the logs, and all the options to configure the web interface. This is the mobile application I'm really proud of. Actually, this was the first version. There have been 5 versions after this. We have like 2 more tests, 3 now, and you can run tests in a really easy way. You have a menu with all the list of your past measurements, the result, and the final log page. Or you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. You just install it and leave it run every day or whenever you want. So talking about the UNI data, the data we collect is open for everyone. It allows researchers to conduct independent studies and experiments on the data, and even the public to verify our findings. So the data is available on UNI Explorer in a really fancy way, country by country. Or for more technical people, we have an API, the measurement API, where you can download the data and extract it and play with it. I really encourage you to do it. So to interpret the data, you can differentiate the network measurements in normal and anomalous. So the one you're more interested could be the anomalous one, and they might contain censorship, but they're not verified. Like I said before, there are a lot of false positives. So if you want to get involved in UNI, you can become a partner of UNI. We have a partnership program. You can join one of our monthly community meetings on Stack. You can run the app or the web app and run some tests and see how it works. Or even like reporting bugs on GitHub. You can contribute to the test list, as I said before, or analyze the data, tell stories, and who knows, maybe hosting a uni workshop and spread the word about us. So I leave here our contacts in the last slide, and as I said, I encourage you to download and install the app now because it's a really great app, I should say, and it's really well done. So if anything, you can go to Ming and she will help you to install the app and point you to the right links.
Thank you so much,
Done.
Lorenzo. In fact, I'm also going to include contact info for this in some of the tweets we'll put out. Just to emphasize, many people may know UNI does fantastic partnerships. There are many other organizations who also in turn have support and resources for organizations who are trying to work with UNI. Access Now has a grants program. Many other organizations in this space, there have been some discussions already. So encourage you to work with them because more technical information is useful. Particularly as Lorenzo mentioned, it's sometimes difficult to determine particular website blocking from shutdown related info, so more technical data is better than less. I thought maybe you could have the other remote participant and then close with one more person in the panel and then just throw it open to open questions. Apar is there remotely. Apar is with the Internet Freedom Foundation in India. Apar, would you like to come in now? Apar, could you unmute and just try to come in?
Hello, am I audible?
You are. Just speak up a bit.
Okay. Hi. Thanks for bringing me in here. I think Ritu as well as Vaishali have to some extent have already touched on the issue of internet shutdown, specifically focusing on India. In addition to, I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Mute the mics.
I'll just mute my speakers and I'll just start speaking. Okay, thanks. So, just carrying forward from what they were saying is that there exists a considerable body of research which is just existing in India at present. A lot of it has been sourced on the basis of press reports which exist and which report where shutdowns are existing. What is important to notice and to prominently state is that there is a lack of state transparency in issuing orders, which by themselves state the reasons for which the shutdown has been done, as well as the period for which the shutdown has actually been implemented. And cataloging these legal orders is a difficult task given that they are not proactively published online and often they are issued in geographical areas which are fairly small, which are termed as districts, which are administrative unit in India, to describe a geographical place. So that's one thing which is important to consider. Now, given that a lot of the existing research in India is based on media reports, a much more systemized process needs to be developed, engaging with policymakers, people in government, and also as has been stated by Lorenzo earlier, maybe technical measures to also look at how internet shutdowns are existing uh, could be uh, could be also looked at. Uh, so just to conclude on research, what we need to do is become a little more systematized. Please just very quickly come up with litigation strategies, not necessarily to file petitions directly in the Supreme Court, but I think more in terms of a rapid response mechanism against each shutdown which is done, and undertaking a legal process. This goes above and beyond writing to, let's say, chief ministers or people in the government, and much more actively examining what are the remedies under law if we are of the view that this is not correct. There's a correct implementation of the existing law, or even making the interpretation of existing law come about a little more clearly that internet shutdowns are not the right way to go. So, given the time constraints, I'll end now. Thanks so much, Raman.
Thank you so much, Apar. In fact, that I think is a good setup, and then we're going to go to open questions. Is just a bit on to you, Anki, on the challenges that industry faces on dealing with shutdown, but also how do you rapidly respond? Is it courts? Is it policy makers? Is it a mix of different institutions elsewhere? So maybe a little bit of that, and then we can toss it to people's questions about how better to engage.
I think, what we have seen, Raman, this is just not India. I think it's a sampler in terms of what is happening across the region. I think the frequency has grown in terms of internet shutdowns across the region, right? And every country, when you talk to them, particularly national governments, in terms of their causations of imposing internet shutdowns, there is a kind of an exceptionalism that everybody will argue that we are in a very unique situation, and often, cultural diversity and the nuance of cultural differences is used as a reason to argue exceptionalism and create some kind of an immunity to justify shutdowns. That is something I won't single out a particular country, but I've seen this across the region. And if you look at Central Asia, where the regional IGF just happened last month, the problem there is even more severe. I just say, I mean, that's a meta point which I wanted to put out there, that this is something which is happening across. The frequency is growing. The kind of measures which different governments are taking is also kind of, there are three key trends. One is that it started off with a blanket network shutdown. Over a period of time, it's got sophisticated in terms of governments or law enforcement agencies having the ability to reach out to ISPs or the network operators directly, and then do domain level blocking. So there are those capabilities which operators now have built, where they're being asked to block out specific domains. And that is problematic because there's no way that you would come to know of it. Like internet platform, like a platform like Facebook will not come to know that it has been blocked till such, because these notices are not served on us. These notices are served on the operators, because they are the licensed entities, and they have to comply because it's written into their license obligations, as you and I and everybody else in this room knows. So that's the second trend which we've seen. The third element which is very interesting is that, and again I go back to the causation point, that it's a combination and a conflation of national security and fake news, hoaxes, rumors, which is being used as a reason to shut down the internet or engage in the selective blocking of domains, which is a different discussion altogether. And there are countermeasures which are available to deal with both concerns of national security, and as you know, that there are measures in terms of accessing of data access as well as content takedowns. Those options are available under the national security argumentation, which we see often. And also in terms of hoaxes, fighting hoaxes and rumors, there are other countermeasures which are available in terms of both the takedown process as well as in terms of working at a civic action level to make sure that there is a certain integrity in the news feed in order to fight fake news and hoaxes. So I think these are the three main trends which I am seeing. In terms of moving to the solutions, of course, what Lorenzo talked about and what Apar talked about, there's a lot of merit in there, and we have to think about the coalition work which advances both the technical countermeasures which needs to be done, because first of all, many times one does not even come to know. So efforts such as SFLCs, and the kind of the docketing which Apar talked about is very important in terms of just making sure that there is that repository which is created, the database which is created, not just to talk about the rights-based harm, but also to talk about the economic consequences, the economic harm as a consequence of this kind of shutdowns is something which needs to be documented pretty rigorously. The other point which I would really argue for is that in different countries there is this big discussion in our region on the strengthening of the rule of law system, and therefore we really need to look at the rule of law sort of framework to try and see how can you get judicial involvement and intervention in terms of reviewing this entire phenomena of internet shutdowns, which, as you know, the levels of harms of the shutdowns operate at a multiple level, social, economic, political, and therefore there's a need to review that basis our fundamental freedoms as well. So I think those are the kind of things which I would love for our community here at the IGFs to do. I think as an industry, we are very committed to the GNI process, the Keep It On campaign, various local campaigns which we are part of in terms of our own individual advocacy work with policymakers, governments, elected parliamentarians, etc. We constantly advocating and constantly talking about this is by itself a bad act, and therefore as we're looking at more growth of digital economy and network societies, digital societies, you have to look at countermeasures to address concerns of national security and hoaxes, and exceptionalism, cultural exceptionalism cannot be a reason for triggering of internet shutdowns of the type that we have seen.
Thank you so much for that, Anki. In fact, it's a good setup, I think, to take open questions now. We have around 10 minutes. We could potentially go into lunch for those who are still here, and of course, we'll be available outside. I'll just note that many people here have specific projects or campaigns they're working on. I see many people in this room doing research on the economic effect of shutdowns, as well as technical materials, questions about how to collaborate. While this is an open session, and there may be sensitive discussions about particular national campaigns that people may want to take offline, with that caveat, feel free to share as much as you like to and ask questions. We'll take maybe a couple of questions in one round. So 3, I see Professor Angpeng Wah, 1. Anyone else? Otherwise, Professor, if you can get you a mic. There's one more there. Maybe if you could just queue up there, that would be great.
Yeah. Hi. I'm wondering if there should be finer distinctions between the various shutdowns, because I've done some work in Ahmedabad, and I find that when I interviewed the people, they were not unhappy about the shutdown, in the sense that they were prepared to sacrifice some of their freedoms and going out and traveling on Uber and so on, because they felt that they were getting some things back in exchange, and there was like a greater security, less of those rioting, less of the chaos. So they seemed quite, like I say, the word isn't sort of satisfied, but not too dissatisfied. So I think at one level, some of these shutdowns may be acceptable to the community if there are good reasons and for a short period. So I think that's one distinction that ought to be made. And secondly, some of the claims about economic damage is overstated, because some things people do compensate. So I think we need to be frank and be brutal and say that these are overstatements, and I think that's not really fair. It's not good for anybody. I think the third thing is that we are saying that it seems like we're saying that the security concerns are not being addressed at all. I mean, I hear no shutdown and so forth, but what about the security concerns? Can we come up with something that we can address some of the security concerns? My final point is that I'm proposing a conference to discuss this issue. The best place I think that can be, because these shutdowns appear to be concentrated in South Asia, perhaps in Nepal, where we can meet. So if you're working in the area, please drop me a note, because I'd like to get in touch with you. Thank you.
One quick question. You said economic harms might be overstated. Could you just explain that briefly? So that
I've seen one report talking about how they take, the way they do it is that what is the economy of the country, divided by number of days, then every day that is shut down is 1 day of damage, and you look at the percentage of the internet or mobile penetration in that country, and then they compute it that way. So if the digital economy is 20% of the economy, you shut down for 1 day, is 20% of 1 day of the GDP. I think that's an overstatement because people work around that, right? Yeah.
I think we'll take the other question as well and then have some responses and then try to take more questions.
Thank you. My question is like,
Could you
first,
just introduce yourself, sorry?
I'm Haider from Bangladesh. My question is like much more, I will start with the comments because the shutdown, like those kind of frequencies getting higher right after the Arab Spring because all like governments and stakeholders kind of afraid whatever anything goes against them and kind of strike. So that's started. But what my question is like, is there any kind of international grounds, there any possibilities to make that actually not like giving not authority the governments not to shut down certain times or like certain like websites or social network? Because even for my countries nowadays, like governments, whenever they can deal with anything, suddenly just completely shut down everything. While like more than nowadays, like there is like more than 2 million revenue they're getting, like the people getting from the outsourcer working. So in that case, definitely is quickly like heated to the economy. So is there any kind of like background? I'm not quite sure about that, but as an expert or having researcher, do you guys have any things? Or if is it not, how could be the policy format, or how could be the framework that could lead these kind of situations to the international arena?
I think we'll try and answer those two questions and then take others. So if you could queue, perhaps, that would be great. In the meantime, if people would like to take, Professor Angpengwa, Masha tossed us 4 questions, 1 suggestion and 3 questions. We noted that. This thing, would anyone like to first address that? I think the first question, the provocative one, is, are some types of shutdowns okay? Can we categorize? Would anyone like to take? Rita?
The definition of a shutdown is not being transparent by the state itself. They say that they are stating to stop the spreading the rumor of a fake news as well as the national security. But the definition of a national security is not being defined by the state. In one of the case, what we have seen as well, that the people itself, they have asked why the shutdown is being there. If the measure, in one case when we were asking from the Kashmir, they said that if the government wants to track down the terrorists, they can do it. They have a CCTV cameras, they can do it. But how are they blanketing down the network itself? They are disturbed. It gives a panic and emotional distress instead of giving them a relief from such kind of a situation, especially when it is for a longer duration. Like in the Kashmir, it's more than it's been blocked from the 3 months or 4 months. And in Darjeeling, it's been a 41 days. So the life of a common people disrupts when they are unable to access certain kind of services and those kind of things. So in fact, my colleague also have asked that definition of a national security needs to be transparent by the state. It is not okay to shut down the blanket services as well sometimes.
And just one comment I'd add, I think one challenge is that sometimes there may be shutdowns that people might be okay with. The question, I think, is on a rights-based framework and for large internet policy, is that a good idea? And I'll throw out a provocative comment because I like throwing out provocative comments. People might be okay with lynchings, right? Like you might have 70% of a population say, yes, that person should have been hung by a tree. That doesn't make it right. I think the challenge also on research, and I do take that, is that there's a difficulty in mapping perceptions on this because you need to often find the people who've been most affected and they may be excluded. So that's why I think a social research question. How do we do that? I think the economic harm one, we don't have an... Anki, would like to answer on the economic harms?
Yeah, I think I respectfully would like to disagree with the notion that there is no economic harm. I've not looked at a whole lot of studies in the region, but the ICRIER study which they put out was pretty thorough. It was done by, sort of through a very intense methodology, so which I think which is extremely well defensible externally in any forum. So I would encourage people to really look at the methodology also. This is very, I think, this is something which cannot be set aside because it is very important, particularly for countries which are pivoting a lot in terms of building national digital plans. A whole lot of trade is happening because of the integration with the internet, and even if you have to sort of set aside the rights discussion for a moment, just looking at the economic harm is pretty enormous, and there is no such way that you can work around. It has become a factor of production. Like there are n number of SMEs, small and medium businesses, whose lifeline to market access is the internet. And if you shut it down, you basically have shut that off. You've shut off jobs. So I, like I said, I disagree with that, sort of notion. And now there is data. Luckily, now there is data to show this. And it's also, Raman, in my generation, when we were growing up, there was this trend which would happen a lot because there was a lot of agitation at that point of time where railways used to be stopped in their tracks, right? Because people would agitate and they will not allow movement of railways from one point to the other. That stopped, and the reason that stopped is because people realized that the economic cost of stopping railways from moving from one place, trains from moving from one point to other because they were carrying precious economic goods and services was essentially disrupting the economy of a particular state. That notion led governments and political parties and other civic agitators to pull back from that as a tactic. So it's my hope that the economic cost over a period of time will become so apparent to everybody that people and governments particularly will stop using this as a measure to counter whatever public order management issues that they are confronted with.
I just want to also address Haider's question, which is on international norms. And I mentioned at the beginning that I think the work of David Kaye, the statements that have come in his report, as well as even previously General Comment 34 on the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights from the Human Rights Committee, is useful because it speaks to this a bit, but we can take that offline. I'd basically venture that there are international human rights law norms now on this space, at least on overblocking entire websites. That's very clear. And if they said you should not block entire websites, then by logic, blocking the entire internet might be something even more clear. And I think David Kaye has already ventured and made comments clearly on that, but we can take that offline and talk about that more.
I would like to add that not exactly a law, but there was a resolution passed by UNHRC, Human Rights Council.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, so there was this resolution also passed by UN Human Rights Council last year in July, wherein they specifically unequivocally condemned the internet shutdowns, and they said that the rights in the online sphere, they also require the same standard of protection as the rights in offline spheres. For example, the right of free speech, freedom of expression. So that UN has also kind of endorsed that yes, internet shutdowns should not take place. So, but there are no specific international
no
laws.
cases yet,
Yeah, no cases as such.
We have 2 more questions, so we'll take those. You just introduce yourself briefly.
Hi, I am Jinel. I am from the Philippines, and my concern is about the use of national security. I agree. I totally agree. I super agree that we should not use national security. I share your passion. I share your idea that we should frown upon the idea that we are using national security as a blanket tool to just justify the blocking of any website. But my personal issue is that I'm not sure. We cannot just say that no, you cannot use national security. But we should also recommend what terms to be used if it's possible, because there's also legitimate reasons why the government want to sanction or to block these websites. But what are we recommending so that we can come up with an ideal setup that we can prevent? I do not really want to use the term national security, but we should prevent some forms of terrorism, but within our justifiable bounds. Thank you.
Thank you. We take the other question as well and then try and answer.
Hello, I am Sakib from Bangladesh. Actually, I have a question about the technical part from the remote user. So I actually asked Kay, maybe she is the technical person here. So my question was that Uni, the question was that when we are actually tracking that, if my websites are blocked or anything, we are doing DNS lookup or something. So for that, the user's IP address, you are also getting the user's IP address. So when you are giving them freedom of speech, as you were saying that you are actually giving against this lockup, but at the same time you are not also doing like some kind of privacy breaching or something like that. And if users are giving you this kind of their personal data, it's IP address of this kind, this is the main portion. What is that like policy that you will also secure their personal data if that's breached, and this might create some problem.
So maybe we can answer them backwards, running with your question. In fact, and to UK, I think, in fact, Lorenzo mentioned that they have a privacy policy and you click yes and you go through that, but maybe, do you want to answer that?
I believe you can choose to opt out of sharing your IP address.
So in
You can
addition to,
choose to opt out.
so it's not just a privacy policy, it's also
So
opt out.
actually,
Go ahead, Lorenzo. We have you here.
yeah, IP address is opt out by default, so you really want to share it with us, otherwise it's disabled by default. We only collect your country name and your ESN, that's all. And there are really generic data about you, and we know nothing about you. Even the new method of probe orchestration, that it will be based on push notification, we will know nothing about you. We just know that you opt in to be a probe and you want to run tests.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. So I think that's a fairly clear answer. And you can, if you have more suggestions, you can catch Lorenzo online as well on this. Uni is always open to ideas. I can also just mention Uni collaborates with many groups on how they can make it better, including legal tests on how the privacy policies can be made better. Access has sometimes helped, even other information. So if you have a concern, don't hold back, share it. And Zeming is here and can pass on detailed recommendations to Uni in person. There was one tough question really, right? I think was, can you have a positive, I wouldn't say positive agenda, but can you have specifics, recommendations about when shutdowns can occur, what sort of actions law enforcement and states can take? And that's a provocative one, so I'm going to ask who might like to answer. I have views on that, but I don't want to abuse my privileges. So I just, maybe that's the one we can end with and then take questions offline. But does anyone want to try and answer that? The tough question about when can people do stuff, what is acceptable, what's not in this? The Keep It On campaign has generally said that we want to prevent blanketly shutdowns, and there's a reason also for that, because if you start saying there's a middle ground, it's very easy to say, okay, our shutdown is perfectly legitimate, but it is a good question, right?
I think, so at SFLC also we generally talk, when we talk about shutdowns, we talk about blanket bans on shutdown. That is for the reason of law and order maybe, or for other reasons for which, for security reasons, national interest, you cannot shut down the entire internet, thereby blocking access to all the essential services as well. So maybe we can have a little bit of discussion on as to whether selective blocking of sites in such conditions might be a solution, wherein law and order situations are involved, or whether they're also not justified. But however, we do disagree that we do agree that blanket ban on shutdowns, in which even the basic utility services are also blocked, they should not be done, because that deny you basic access to services.
The one point which we also need to think about it, when the when we are in a crisis or in a terms of our communal violence, we need more voices from the government instead of blanking it down. That the one case which we have seen in the Bangalore city police has used the Twitter just to mention that there are arrangements by the city transportation for providing the services. So it can be used as a flip side to use the social media websites and other tools to bring the calm and the bring quiet and calm place in peace in the society itself or the community itself. Instead of shutting it down in the blanket notion, it won't help it that much. So we do agree that the blanket shutdown should not occur. There can be some level of a transparency and accountability by the state as well as by the, I don't know about the telcos, but yes, there could be some kind of accountability that needs to be taken into on the ground as well.
I probably abuse my privileges to say three things. One, firstly, is that the sort of thing that Ritu just mentioned is that actually the massive use of social media by government to dispel rumors and provide information, combat even fake news. The best answer sometimes to fake news is when officials are themselves online. That said, officials say horrible things also. Officials are politicians and public figures, so they can, and they're human beings. But that said, more valid information is useful. The Bangalore example is great because 3 years ago in Bangalore city, the exact discussion was, let's shut down the internet in toto, and now you instead have Bangalore city police and chief ministerial officials saying they would rather use the web. And that's not just Bangalore. You may remember the first actual real discussion of a shutdown in a true sense was during the London riots, right? A couple of years ago, under David Cameron, where there was a proposal and they said, we're going to shut down social media. It got really widely reported that Twitter and others got summoned. What people failed to notice was the actual fact that A, no shutdown occurred, B, they studied the London riots. There's a fantastic London School of Economics report, which I recommend everyone actually reads. It's very brief and very clear. And they interviewed the Metropolitan Commissioner of Police, the head of the UK's police force. And he basically said, A, if you had shut down social media at least, that would have been illegal. And a police official saying that very clearly is rare, right? But he said it would have been illegal. Secondly, he said it would have been counterproductive, frankly, because A, we were dispelling rumors online. And he said C, and he's a frank British official, he said we were tracking people. Not just like, detailed IP information, but we were just seeing someone tweeting out or showing a pictures, look, I smashed the state, I smashed a glass window, and they would deploy police officials to that area. So you could see the sort of like dynamic responses that were taking place. So that's an interesting thing to take. But the last thing I wanted to say was, in fact, the only real situation where I am ever tempted to say a shutdown of the entire internet might be acceptable is actually the technical one, right? Massive malware attacks where in order to, for example, and anyone who's run network operations, right? Sometimes you have to switch off a switch. You have to be able to purge, network logs. That's perhaps the only occurrence. But again, there could be debate on whether that's acceptable. In this region, again, we've heard cybersecurity agencies who are also doing policing work who will say a riot is also a cybersecurity incident, at least in my home state of India, and I know you've heard too much of India in this session. That's sometimes been argued. And perhaps that's the only model there. It's still provocative. We'll take these comments there. Even in the Keep It On campaign, we're always open to comments and criticism. David Kay and the UN rapporteurs always engage on this, and I believe there'll also be a regional consultation, in fact, in just a couple of months, where many of them might be in this region and may take thoughts, and you should feel free to share that. With that, we'll close formally. Many of us are available here, and if you have ideas about criticism, thoughts, research methodologies, or intervention or legal ideas, please come and catch us, and we're available for this. But with that, I'd really like to thank the panel and thank all the remote participants who've been very patient and joined in there, and thank you for your patience.